Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Dojo Live. Today is Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. We're already in February. I am Tulio Siragusa, broadcasting from Southern California, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Kim Lantis in Hermosillo, Mexico. Kim's got some potential co-hosts of her own today.
You can probably hear them in the background.
And Carlos Ponce, who makes the magic happen in Cuernavaca, Mexico. Hey, Carlos, welcome back.
Thank you.
So we got an interesting topic today. I'm looking forward to learning all that we can from our guest, who is R.J. Stevens. He's the Chief Revenue Officer at Airdeck. Hi, R.J. Welcome to the show. I think you're broadcasting from Southern California, too. Are you in San Diego, I think?
I am, in fact, in San Diego, mostly sunny San Diego.
Nice. Yes, it's just a little further north from you in Orange County. So we're neighbors. Well, you know, it's funny. We're neighbors, and here we are on live video. And this is what I think the conversation's about today is how much can be done with these kinds of initiatives, these kinds of technology. But before we get into the topic, let's get to know you a little bit. Please, RJ, tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, thanks. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I think we'll talk about a lot of interesting things. So, you know, me personally, I'm a startup software sales leader. Been in technology for probably 20 plus years now, and what I've discovered is I like doing unique and innovative things that solve meaningful problems for people. I mean, I kind of view what I do more of as a service of anything, and just finding the right people that I can help. And so, looking at the way that technology is evolving and how fast that is happening, and how you can apply that to solve meaningful problems that create relationships. That's kind of what I focus on, and what I'm drawn towards. And it doesn't always mean it's easy, but it always means it's interesting. So that's kind of me, professionally, personally. Like I said, I live here in San Diego with my wife and 3 kids. I try to get outside. I find myself more looking at my faux Zoom background that shows me being outdoors than actually being outdoors. So I'm trying to cross that bridge. But that's a little bit about me, and happy to kind of dive in wherever you think is best.
Great. Well, thanks. Let's talk about Airdeck. What is the company all about? What gave birth to this idea? What do you guys do?
Yeah. So what drew me to Airdeck is exactly that. It's a problem I think we're all facing. We're seeing it now. It's how many Zoom meetings can you take in a day? How much time do you really want to spend on video? And how do we kind of facilitate communication more effectively in this distributed, remote, asynchronous world we're forced to live in? And I came to Airdeck because the co-founder and I, or the founder, I should say, and I have a long-standing relationship. We were business partners in the past. And I was actually at a different startup, Silicon Valley-based startup, working on, kind of custom application development in the artificial intelligence space. And the founder of Airdeck came to me one day and said, "Hey, I've got this idea. I want to see what you think about it." And he showed me Airdeck. And candidly, it solved so many problems that I was facing right then and there. I just said, "Hey, I don't know where you're going with this, but if I can help, let me know." And fast forward, I joined to lead the sales organization, and now we're kind of going to market. And the kind of the genesis of the company was Jason Weaver, our founder, is kind of a serial entrepreneur. He was looking to start a company, and he was having trouble getting traction with his audience and with venture capitalists. And so one day he decided what he was going to take this long PowerPoint that he had, and he was going to do a video of him giving it. And it took him like 10 or 15 tries. He kept messing up and starting over. And eventually he got it. And so he sent it out, and lo and behold, people watched it. And they were captivated by it. And they thought, "Oh my gosh, now I get it. I've got these 5 questions. Can you send me another video?" And it was so difficult for him to produce. He's like, "Just can't be the only option for me to do this." And that's where he decided to come up with Airdeck. How do you use your voice to convey contextual information and facilitate a connection? But how do you do it at scale? And that was the genesis of Airdeck. How do you do that with presentations and documents and power those with your voice? and there's a lot of value to that. So that's kind of where it started. We're ramping up quickly and going to market, and in early stages, but we're seeing some interesting feedback already.
Great. Well, congratulations. Let's go right into the topic today. Carlos, what are we talking about today? Let's go right into it.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tulio, and thanks to RJ, our guest. And Tulio, we're going to be speaking about overcoming the challenges of connecting in this remote world. It doesn't get any more remote than that nowadays, right? So we're also going to be answering the question on how to use the power and uniqueness of your voice to build business. So I really look forward to this conversation. So RJ, I have a question for you. My first question for you from the show is, why did you choose this particular topic? Might not even need to ask this, but why did you think it was relevant for this day and age? Thank you.
I mean, it started out with this being personal, right? Like when I started to think about my day-to-day work life and even my personal life, it's we're all facing the challenges of how can we, be together? How can we collaborate? How can we share, what I would say is meaningful content and conversations? And it used to be so simple. It used to be we would, meet up at happy hour. It used to be we would jump on a plane and go sit in a conference room. It used to be, we would be able to have these face-to-face interactions, and now we cannot. And, Zoom has been really popular, but I think people are getting a little, frazzled with that a bit and coordinating all that. It was just challenging. So how can you do it more effectively and still do it meaningfully? So it was solving my problem as a sales leader and as a company leader in trying to connect with my clients and my prospects, but also solving problems personally. And so to me, that was big enough that it was something worth diving into and really putting my time and efforts into. So that's really where it started.
Okay, thank you so much, RJ. Okay, guys, would anybody else like to do the honors?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go right into it. So obviously that problem has become accelerated in today's world, at least this past year, and at least for the foreseeable future. Who knows how long that will be? Hopefully shorter than longer. But so what are some of the challenges that you're seeing in working with clients that they're still facing, and how do you solve those with your platform?
Well, I think it's really comes down to time and efficiency, right? And how do you maintain and facilitate conversations and engagement, and do so in a way that works around your schedule too, right? Like, we're all conditioned to consume content whenever we want it, right? We're watching Netflix and binge watching shows. We're listening to Spotify and podcasts and all these things and getting on-demand content. Yet we're still trying to schedule like live meetings and conversations, and it's just candidly a challenge. It takes a long time. It gets pushed out. And so the problems that we're seeing our clients have is, how do you maintain like the flow of an engagement, and how do you do so without these big prolonged gaps? Because it causes business problems. Your projects take longer, meetings take longer, it slows down revenue. There's just a bunch of those things that are the byproduct of that inefficiency. So if you could do it more asynchronously, where it's a back and forth, and still make it contextual, you can probably address some of those things, and then focus your live time for what is really warranted with that. And so that's the biggest challenge we're trying to do, is how do you kind of balance all that and still, not be working 15 hours a day. I mean, if you look, you're in multiple places around the world, right? How do you sync up on time zones? I've been with companies that had 17 different time zones of their staff. How do you manage? It's like, it's almost impossible, right? So that's a big problem today as we become more of a global sort of, all of our organizations are becoming global.
I from what I've investigated a bit about Airdeck, I think what I'm hearing, you all know the meme, right? Or the eye rolling of, this meeting could have been an email kind of joke. So now we see that this meeting could have been an Airdeck. Like, let's put it on a presentation. Let's add some voice. I like how you're adding more elements. Right?
That's a good one.
You've got this visual. Now you have the auditory component, making it more personal, which I think is always appreciated, especially when we're having to work at a distance. One of the use cases that I think I'm seeing here would be even with in Cora. Here we have a prolonged, at least a 2-week-long onboarding process for any of our new teammates. As we're ramping up and as we're growing, some of us, including myself, who give it's now a weekly onboarding presentation of this is who we are, this is this area, this is how it works. And I'm thinking, well, wouldn't this be cool? I could make an Airdeck out of this. People could watch it. And then maybe we could just set up like a short Q&A session if there is something. And I could see how that could facilitate my life, make better use of my time, even maybe better use of the people who are being onboarded, because it gives them the freedom of being able to watch these videos and participate and to facilitate their own time, especially working from home, as it's crazy. Like suddenly you're like, gosh, I need to feed my kids, right? So I really like these use cases. My question for you is utilizing your voice. How would you encourage people to do that? The people who say, gosh, I don't have a good voice, or this sounds so boring. So how can we encourage people to actually want to utilize their voices? And what are tips on how to have an effective voice?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And by the way, Kim, you're hired. Whenever you want to start, we'll bring you on board. That's exactly the use case that we would recommend and we're seeing people do. So kudos to you, because that is exactly one of the things that we see people doing. I think when it comes to your voice, part of it is also just authenticity. Like, people want to get to know you. They want to understand. I saw a stat the other day that said, people remember 22 times greater, the audio of a conversation and the imagery, right? Like, so it's how are you like facilitating that kind of human connection and the tone of your voice. It doesn't mean like, yeah, look, I'm not going to go out and create a hit record or, be a voiceover actor, any of that sort of stuff. But people can get to know me a little bit by just hearing how I'm, explaining this or talking to them. And it kind of gives you that tone and that warmth. And you begin, I think, look, I don't have the studies to back this up, but I strongly suspect that we're all craving some of that too in this isolated world that we're in. So how can you do that in a way? And it's also less, I would say, maybe, scary or whatever than video, right? A lot of people, look, you're on Zoom all day long. People are like, look, I just want my hair to be whatever it is. And I don't want to have to worry about what my background looks like. So it's easier than that. And so that's what we do. And I think once you start to see, and people, it's just like anything else. It's got to be a little bit uncomfortable in the beginning, but it becomes really easy as you go.
So RJ, this is very timely. I've written 4 blogs in the past 4 weeks related to innovation. Started with innovation and design thinking and sales and marketing. And today's blog came out, was talking about customer success. And one of the things I talked about was innovation in enabling customer success with using video chats with customers and chat bots and things of that sort, which personalizes the experience. And I didn't think of this particular solution. I'm curious the kinds of use cases you're seeing adopted. I mean, I see some great value in being able to have instructional information for customers who might be calling in for, how do I do this, right? So you got a deck that gives instruction and talks them through it, which is different than just reading about it. But there's obviously a lot of value here in terms of sales and marketing initiatives, training. What are the primary use cases you're seeing being adopted with this so far?
It's amazing in the fact that there's a lot of ones that I would say are pretty, semi-standard and straightforward. Kim brought up like training and onboarding. When I joined Airdeck, I got an email the very first day. Hey, congratulations, you started. Here's a link to all your benefits package. And I clicked on that link, and lo and behold, unbeknownst to me, it was all my benefits being presented to me in an Airdeck. And they were a client. I had no idea. And it was like, wow. And I could go back and watch what I didn't catch. And I didn't have to schedule a meeting. Or, QBRs, like we have a client, they have 1,500 customers. The top 100, they do, quarterly business reviews and they take the time, but those other 1,400 clients, what are they getting? If you could easily do, a download of some of the reports and walk them through, here's what we tried, our goals for this month or this quarter, here's how you performed, here's maybe some ideas of what we could do next quarter. You ship it off, you track their engagement, see what they're seeing, see what they're most interested in. It's interactive. You can ask questions, you can put in a survey, you can do that at scale. But to the point of the use cases, we see different use cases like almost every week. We actually saw a client that went in, put up a picture of their family holiday, greeting card, and then voice narrated out their holiday greetings and sent out via emails. And we're like, wow, what a great idea. So our CEO, made one, sent it out to all of our clients, right? It's like we're seeing new ways that people are using this like we couldn't even dream of.
Next generation Instagram. I love it.
I have a question, RJ, and this might be more tied to personal curiosity than anything else. But let's see if there's something that we can come up with. Many times when I listen to my own voice, and this is something that happens with a lot of people, I don't like it. For some reason, it's like I hear myself and I go, nah, there's something to hearing or listening to one's own voice.
12-year-old that's speaking.
We don't like it, right? So has this particular aspect or psychological trait, let's just call it, that a lot of people have, has somehow gotten in the way of adoption on the tool or on the platform? Or how has this element, if applicable, affected adoption?
Yeah,
or even rejection.
Right. Yeah. No, I think there's a couple things. One is like you do have, and we have the ability to, like, if you want to use a voice actor to kind of narrate, maybe it's more of a piece of marketing collateral, and it can come off very polished. But I think there's a pro and a con to that, going back to the authenticity piece, right? And I think we've all been forced to become more accepting of being on video or hearing that. And so, I would say, look, you don't have to necessarily listen to it yourself, but if you put it out there, I haven't really seen or heard use cases where, I appreciate, people's individuality. So we haven't really seen a lot of pushback. I think if we were selling this, like, we tend to be connecting with executives, sales, customer success, marketing, those sort of groups inside of an organization. We work with teachers in higher education. We have like 1,000 K-12 schools using us. We have professors at Northwestern and Columbia doing courses on it. So most of the people that we're talking to already are kind of used to presenting or going out there, right? I think if we were selling this to developers, we might have nothing against it. But typically the groups that are engaging with are just trying to find a more effective way to do this.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
And the delivery is it on the cloud? So you just send the link. You're not sending an attachment, because so someone could argue, okay, I can do voiceover on a PowerPoint, but then you got to send a 100 megabyte attachment or whatever the size ends up being.
Yeah, and with my steam powered internet, I just want
to sustainable.
Right. Well, and the other thing is, then you're not able to track it. You're not able to see where are they engaging the most. It's not interactive. Right. Another thing is, with on the cloud, let's say you put it together a presentation and you made a mistake, or you changed something you want to change. You can go back and change it later. The next time it's viewed, all the most recent content's being pulled forward. So you do have some ability to control content that way, as well as make it interactive. So there's a lot of reasons why, we would say that this is, I don't want to necessarily say better than video, but just a different way to make it a richer experience.
So is there like A/B testing available then with that feature? Like which got more traction than the other?
No, it's more of an analytics dashboard. You can see, you can look and see on each slide how much time people are spending, where are they looking at it. If it's a survey, you can gather questions. Like you can voice narrate a survey in the midst of a deck and say, which of these things are you most interested in? And then you can get those questions back too. And there's a chat feature where they can communicate back and forth with you. So it also makes it more interactive in that capacity as well. So a little bit more engaging than video.
So is the presentation, the Airdeck, is it does the user forward on its own, or it's kind of has its own time loop? How does that work?
Can you clarify? What do you mean by that?
So here's the question. If I'm, let's say, receiving a training, right? Does it go on its own pace and I'm keeping up with it, or do I control when I get to the next module or the next step? How does it work? Either way.
You can choose
So,
either way.
and the reason I'm asking this, I'm curious, in those environments, especially in e-learning, where sometimes they're timed, right? It's not, you don't always have the luxury of next, it's time. Is there any plan to introduce some kind of a AI algorithm that tracks how fast someone might respond to something, or is assimilating information and then adapt based on the user? What's the thinking around those kinds of use cases?
I don't know about the AI piece. One of the things we're looking at is using the ability to almost do a question inside of the deck where a person would answer it, and then they could skip to a different part based on their answer. So you could load up kind of like a master presentation, and maybe it serves 2 or 3 or 4 different audiences, and you do kind of a high level piece of it, and then you ask them which of these sort of use cases is the most interesting, and they click, and then they would skip to that section and start going through that section. So that's a direction we're going. I don't know about the AI piece. I will write that down, and if we do that, I'll circle back and give you full credit.
My thinking is, have you ever guys seen a presentation where you have to wait through the whole thing and you're like, okay, I can skip this part, I got it, and you're just forced to go through the whole thing? And I was just curious about either for both reasons, right? The person who might want to move forward and the person who might want it to slow down, whether they have some controls. It sounds like you've given the end user some control over that, which is great.
Yeah.
So what's next for you guys? You got a lot of different use cases. Is there one in particular that's sort of coming back to you saying, hey, can you do this? Can you do that, in terms of a specific vertical or industry that seems to be responding more favorably, that's kind of pushing you in one direction or the other?
One of the things that we're doing, I don't know if it's industry specific. I definitely think there's a few use cases, but now what we're also doing more and more with is document annotation. So let's say it could be a proposal, it could be an agreement, it could be a blueprint, anything like that. And it could be a spreadsheet is where we're going to go with it. So now you're uploading something like of that nature, and you are walking somebody through explaining it. So it's not so much just a presentation. Now it's a document, because what we were seeing is that 30% of our clients were trying to upload documents, but the aspect ratio was meant for a presentation. So we're like, well, I guess they want to use documents. Let's give them that. And so now what we're saying is we're going to be able to do that and basically annotate different pieces of that, interact with different pieces of that. Could be applied really well for legal, could be applied, like I say, in project management, could be applied in, we've got architectural firms using it. It's like, so I think the document side is going to be super interesting for us, to take something that's normally just a flat, hey, let me send you this and you try to figure it out, and then let's set up a call, to let me explain it to you. And then going back, Kim, I think to your point about training, then if we need a call later to just talk about what you don't understand or questions you have, we can be way more efficient with our time. And that's that whole asynchronous piece, which I think is really valuable when it comes to how we're managing our time these days.
Guys, I'd like to step in real quick. First of all, before we continue, I have a very quick announcement. If any of you have questions for our guests, I mean, any of the view in the audience and the viewers have questions for RJ, you can send them on Twitter right here. Where is it? That direction?
You got it.
Yeah. Over there. Okay, there you have it. So it's right here at Dojo Live. Just send them over. We'll share them with RJ, and he'll respond either right here on real time, or we can also get back to you after we read our feed. Okay, yeah. The last question that I have for you, RJ, is I think you briefly mentioned it, like real quick, but who's your client? Who's your ideal customer? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think the reality is in the business space, we're trying to solve problems that are attached to revenue, right? Typically, that can be client acquisition, so kind of through the prospecting phase and client engagement. In my background, where I saw that this applying is like, once you're talking to a person, they would say, hey, can you send me that presentation as a follow-up? And, I, as a sales professional, would cringe like, okay, I just lost control. Like, I'm sending them something. I have no idea when they're looking at it. Are they sharing it with someone who really has no idea what I'm talking about? So we tend to focus in where we can tie this to how this is going to help someone, like I say, build their business, grow their business. But we're also seeing it on the retention side, increasing customer satisfaction, getting someone, using it for maybe, let's say, like new feature releases and product marketing. How do you teach somebody to use a product? So now they're using your product more because you're teaching them with your voice and you're getting that level of engagement. So that's typically where we engage. But then we start seeing we have CEOs that use us for their weekly update throughout their company. So they're creating a deck each week. They're voice narrating a few slides. They're sending it out to all their different time zones and all their employees. So now instead of having one meeting at 6 a.m. in the morning for their time and all over the globe, they can send it out. So it starts, once they start using it, it kind of just spreads inside of an organization across a whole bunch of different use cases.
Thank you. Thank you, RJ. Yeah.
That's always the challenge and the opportunity, right? Especially for a startup, trying to figure out where do we focus our attention and get really good at it. So curious to learn in terms of the company's culture, how do you go about validating ideas? Do you have a user base that you engage with on a regular basis? Do you go based on what the traction in the marketplace is looking at? How do you guys shape where to focus on? Because those are pretty diverse use cases. How are you guys adapting to the market? Do you have a strategy to do that?
Yeah, well, that's a very timely question for us because we're working through that right now. Obviously, we're getting direct feedback from our existing clients about what's working, what's not working, best practices, those sort of things. It's interesting in the fact that we're actually having people we engage with, we're asking them, hey, make an Airdeck and send it to us. So, we can see what they're thinking and it gives us an asynchronous way. And we learn from them doing that. Like, oh, we wouldn't have thought of doing it. Like I had, somebody kind of show us a new way to do it just the other day. So it is collaborative in that nature. And really for us, it is, to your point, being very open to the ideas because there's so many different ones that are coming to us and then understanding where does that fit sort of in our prioritization. Because ultimately, our belief is the more people we can help and the more companies, individuals that could use this to improve their business, then that will come back to us. Like that'll benefit us. So it's more like getting it out there and getting adoption and just being open to these ideas, I think, is just from a culture perspective, how we look at it. But the problem then becomes how do you kind of stack rank with limited resources to what you're developing and then test and iterate that. So I think that's very much a work in progress that we're engaging on right now, whether it's in, B2B software, whether it's in, education, whether it's in training, whether it's in all these different sort of use cases, figuring that out. And as we grow, I think we'll do kind of bits and pieces in all of those.
Great. I think you guys have a lot of potential for sure. I see clear opportunity in the customer success space, where you could do first level, second level kind of support with automation, both combination of chatbots and introducing, oh, here's how you do that, right? And there's a human being talking, not just a bunch of slides. So you guys are in great space. We wish you a lot of success. So we're coming up on time. In terms of building this out, what are some of the lessons you're learning as an entrepreneur that you might want to share with others who similarly may have a product or an offering that has a pretty far-reaching opportunity, but how do you go about, focusing and generating the outcomes that investors are expecting, right? What are some of the, words of advice or wisdom you might have with those who are like, we can solve all the world's problems, but we've got to generate results for the investors. What advice do you have for folks?
Yeah, that is such an important point. I mean, and that's really what I think the blessing and the curse of what we have. It could do so many different things. How do we stay focused? And so, what we're trying to do is basically create essentially two separate channels. One is an engaged channel where we're putting our time and effort and energy where we believe we can drive the most meaningful value for companies, and that's going to drive revenue for us. while also at the same time having more of an automated self-serve channel where people can come in, find us through what we're doing in marketing and outreach, and sort of, get engaged on their own and use it on their own. And so that allows us to kind of do both the breadth and the depth, I think. And then we're pulling learnings from that self-serve channel where we've got people coming on and doing, we saw one the other day where somebody put a family scrapbook with their pictures on it and voice narrated, hey, this is when we were down at the lake that summer, how great of a time that was. And that's, probably not, where we're going to focus our sales and marketing efforts today, but it's super fascinating to see. And it's applicable use cases. So the ability to kind of have a foot in both those camps is something I personally have never experienced professionally, but it's very interesting because we can take the learnings from one and apply it to the other. But to your point, we do have to take the resources we have. So we've got to be a little bit, guarded with our time somewhat and invest it where we think it does have the highest return and then start to roll it out. We just brought on a head of marketing and we're really attacking that right now and being open to where it takes us. So, but that is, you're right. I mean, these, VCs give you some money. I think they're expecting a return.
Right. Well, it's been great to have you. We definitely want to stay in touch with you to see how you progress and what ends up happening. So many opportunities for this. Be curious to see how it plays out over time. We wish you a lot of success. Thanks for being with us today. Stay with us as we wrap up. Carlos, what do we got coming up? We have another show tomorrow.
That's right, Tulio. We have a conversation with product innovator Tatiana Mahmoud. Mahmoud. I am yet to figure out the right pronunciation for that last name. I hope it's not Mammoth because I'm gonna look ridiculous here. So we're gonna be speaking about talking about customers. We're gonna be speaking about how a customer-centric culture creates great digital experiences. Tatiana has worked with big name companies like Nextdoor, Amazon, Salesforce, IDEO, so a number of them. So this conversation is going to be right here on Dojo Live tomorrow at 12 noon as usual. I'll see you there and stay safe, everyone.
Bye.